Okay, so this is just a really short sort of insert video, and because I wanted to do it in Teams live, imagining this was like a live lesson, and obviously I'm just in a meeting with myself, but imagine that you had your students, you had your other participants in your meeting, and in the same way I'm sure you have been doing, you would share your presentation, or it could be something else that you've got on your desktop, a website or whatever, but in this case I'm sharing my presentation, and I've just got an exam question, or the item from an exam question for application skills. And what I want to do is I want to model to the students how to approach this type of question and how to basically pull apart and annotate the item to get the most out of it, to get as many clues as possible. So I'm imagining that this is a form of scaffolding and support, because I'm trying to give the students an insight into how I would approach a question when they might not have done many of these before. And we know we need to do lots of practice and gradually remove scaffolds and gradually remove the support. So we often use the I do, we do, you do approach, and that can apply exactly the same way remotely. And I'm going to show you a little bit here. So I've got my text ready, and I'm going to use the graphics tab to sort of live annotate in the same way that I might if I was stood at the whiteboard. But it's not necessary to have one of those. I've just got a cheapy one, but actually you could just have a piece of paper and have this printed out, or have written it on, and position a webcam or a visualizer so that your audience in the live lesson can see it. You know, there's other ways of doing it, of course. But the important thing is that the students can see your thinking gradually, and you can break this up with that participation, with that question and answer. So I'll try and model how you might do that as well. So I want the students to see what I would do if faced with this particular question. So I'm going to say to them, just going to get my pen ready, draw with touch. I'm going to say to them that as soon as I see a name, I know that name needs to go into my answer. So I'm just going to write name, as obvious as it might sound, because it's really important that I'm applying it to this particular context of Bina. And Bina's been diagnosed with depression, and I know that in psychology for my course, we look at depression from the cognitive point of view. So I'm going to think about that. Her doctor says that depression is a common problem, but Bina's miserable. Right, miserable. Okay, this is an emotional characteristic, because I know that for any disorder, I have to think about the cognitive, behavioural and emotional characteristics. She can't be bothered to get washed in the morning, and her manager's unhappy that she's taking a lot of time off work. Oh, okay, it's starting to affect her daily life. Now that should make me think of something, but I'm not going to write on yet because I need to read on. When she does go to work, she's irritable, has temper tantrums, and is rude to customers. Right, so I've read my little item. I'm not finished with it yet, but in order for me to know what I should be zoning in on and what I should be focusing on, I need to read my question. And then I go back and I reread. So using your knowledge of 3 definitions of abnormality, right, okay, I know this is a definitions question now, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, her doctor says it's a common problem. Common makes me think of the definition of statistical infrequency, or in this case, frequency, if it's a common problem. Okay, so that's number 1. That's one of my definitions. Then this idea that she can't be bothered to get washed, and because she's taking a lot of time off work, her manager's unhappy. This affect daily life that I wrote, that should make me think of another definition, which is the failure to function adequately definition. And that, of course, uses the GAF scale. So that's going to be my number 2. And this idea of having temper tantrums, she's an adult, she's in a work context, and she's having temper tantrums. That should make me think that she deviates from social norms. Okay, so I've got my 3, lovely. So then I have to explain whether or not Bina's behaviour might be considered to be abnormal. So I'm going to take each one in turn and I'm going to apply it, and I'm not going to be afraid to use exact language from the item, for example, not getting washed in the morning for number 2, because that's what the question's asking me to do. Okay, so at that point, I might stop sharing the screen, and I might then go to a little bit of participation to just check their understanding of that. I might leave it up on the screen for them actually, so that they've got a reference point. It depends how ready I think they are to sort of step towards doing it more independently. But I might check understanding questions like, Matthew, I mentioned the GAF scale. Just remind me what the GAF scale is. Or I might want to check more about the skills that we've just used so that I feel confident that they're ready to apply those same skills themselves. So I might say, Gabby, what was the first thing I needed to do? What was the first thing I spotted? And what did that tell me I needed to include in my answer? And hopefully she would say, well, the name. So I need to talk about Bina being abnormal rather than just a random person. So that's just an example of how we might model something in a remote context. So it's nothing new, it's nothing different to what I know you've already heard and seen me demonstrate lots of times before, but this was just how we might make a couple of little tweaks to do it in this kind of way, because I still think it's important. In fact, I think it's even more important before we set students away to go and tackle a task that we've taken the time to model it, give them some pause time to think about it, give them an opportunity to maybe practice it or to see it again, give them a chance for you to check their understanding that they have got it before you say, right, away you go. And I wanted you to see it in the context of a live Teams meeting, hence why this is sort of a little insert video. Okay, hope that was helpful.